February 2018, late afternoon, and a flock of lapwings gather over fields just to the west of the runway at Leeds and Bradford Airport. The black and white twinkling of the flock in flight is a distinctive sight, making these birds easy to recognise. Once a common sight here, the birds had vacated this area during recent years, but had begun to return, although probably to the displeasure of the airport authorities, who have to enforce bird scaring methods to keep the flocks away from the runway when it is active. The lapwing's alternate name, peewit, echoes the bird's basic call. In winter, the lapwings look for arable land, mainly for feeding on small invertebrates, which live on or just below the soil. These form the bulk of their food, so these freshly turned fields are ideal. December 2020, and a pleasant sunny afternoon at the lapwing's popular field. The white underparts, contrasting with the dark glossy green upper parts, produce the distinctive flashing and twinkling in flight. Lapwings are medium sized, averaging about 11.5 inches, that's 29 centimetres, from bill to tail. The wingspan is about 3 times the bird's length. As the light begins to fade, the lapwings congregate on the field to roost through the night. Close up, they are a very attractive bird. Both male and female have a distinct crest on the head. The bird's colourful feathers are best seen in sunlight when the upper parts of the dark green and purple highlights are most apparent. The mint moth, so called as mint is a popular food for the caterpillar, is very small, having a wingspan of only 15 to 18 millimetre. I caught this one on a plant in my garden. Being a day-flying moth, it can be seen on sunny days between April and September. House martins nesting at my house, seen here in June 2019. These small black and white birds, relatives of the swallow, are common summer visitors. To overwinter they return to Africa. I usually expect their return in April and departure in October. Their summer habitat is mainly urban, nesting particularly in mud constructions under the eaves of buildings. The oystercatcher is a distinctive large wading bird, common around the coasts but also breeds inland in the north. I filmed this group at Grimwith Reservoir in North Yorkshire. They have a penetrating call, often chorused by several birds. The bright red beaks, deep red eyes, sharply defined black and white markings makes identity simple. An adult male great spotted woodpecker at Addle Dam Nature Reserve. The red patch on the back of the head indicates this is a male bird. The woodland habitat at this reserve is ideal for this species. Instead of a song, the woodpecker rapidly drums with its beak against a tree, usually heard between January and June. Nearby, a great tit searches for food. A great tit feeds, oblivious of the woodpecker. A nuthatch plucks a seed from the feeder. A moorhen, commonest of the crake and rail family, approaches along the shallow stream which enters the pond. The kingfisher is probably the most exotic and colourful British bird. Often in residence at Addle Dam, but still quite elusive, it was just good fortune to catch this shot of a male bird perched in hunting mode above the pond. Regrettably, I missed the moment it dived and caught a small fish. In May 2018, this shoveler duck visited Yeadon Dam. Attractively coloured, it has a bill flared at the tip like a shovel, through which it sieves fine particles of food from shallow water. The shoveler is slightly smaller than the mallard duck, and the brown underbelly, white breast and bottle green head are distinguishing features. This is not a common visitor to the dam. pair of male tufted ducks passed by. Unlike the shoveler, the tufted ducks dive for their food. The female tufted ducks are all over dark brown, whilst the males are black and white. Both have the tuft on the head. A coot feeding its young chicks was too good an opportunity not to be missed. On the day I was filming the coops, this long-legged wader alighted on rocks at the dam. I later identified this black-tailed godwit, a very rare sighting indeed. Thankfully my camera was loaded and ready to record it. Addledam Nature Reserve does have many grey squirrels, which are often eating seeds dropped from the bird feeders. This one was filmed near a hide. Sometimes visitors encourage them to eat seeds on the hide windowsills. This can lead to the squirrels entering the hide. The grey is an American animal, introduced to the British Isles in the late 19th century. As it is now common all over England and Wales, our native red squirrel has declined as a consequence. The grey is a forest pest and considered to be vermin. The great tit is distinctive and the biggest of our common tits, and its springtime call of teacher teacher is a familiar sound. The flamboyant male mandarin duck originates from the Far East. Introduced as an ornamental bird in the early 20th century, escapees have multiplied and spread throughout the country. Addledam Reserve is a popular haunt of theirs in springtime. The female mandarin is only grey-brown, but has a distinctive white eye ring which extends back in a line down the side of the head, slightly looking like spectacles. The mandarins do not quack, but whistle. Stainburn Forest, August 2020, and my first ever sighting of a common lizard. Only very small, 10 to 15 centimetres, this one had been basking in the sun on a fallen log. The slightest movement would have seen it darting off into cover, so no time for a tripod. The average lifespan of this little reptile is 5 to 6 years. Another visit to Stainburn Forest in September 2020, this time entered from the Norrid Edge end of the plantation, where a pond attracts some super wildlife. Tadpoles still inhabiting the pond, and water boatmen on the surface. But my main reason for the visit was to film an emperor dragonfly. For clarity, I've had to slow down the motion as the dragonfly darts around so quickly. It has a beautiful green body and blue tail, which glistens like jewels in the sun. Only 78mm long, they are one of nature's gems. April 26th 2015, I filmed the West Lagoon at Stavely Nature Reserve, 2.5 miles southwest of Boroughbridge. Unfortunately, the hide is set back from the lake, so a good, powerful telephoto lens would have been useful on this shoot, as I attempt to capture some wading birds way out on a small rocky island. Careful frame examination brings me to the conclusion that they are curlews, particularly comparing their size to the lapwing that flew in. Stavely Nature Reserve is in a beautiful location, with wide views of the distant North Yorkshire moors and big skyscapes. The White Horse at Kilburn can be seen on this clear day, and here the East Lagoon lies beyond the Haymeadow field. These views from the top of a small hill, the highest point on the reserve. The East Lagoon provides open water, marsh and reed beds. Managed by the Yorkshire Wildlife Trust, the reserve is an isolated, peaceful place to view many birds, insects, wildflowers and sometimes otters. Black-headed gulls in breeding plumage, head, chin and throat chocolate brown. This duck is a male teal, which is our smallest dabbling duck. A nest box, home of a great tit. Hebridean sheep graze the bankside field on the side of the West Lagoon. Common terns are summer visitors to Stavely. These are common summer visitors which arrive from Africa in late April. Shell ducks are halfway between a duck and a goose. They are certainly the size of a small goose and have unmistakable plumage. They are regular visitors to the reserve and seen here on the shallows of West Lagoon. A cormorant dries its wings. Although they dive for fish, their plumage is not waterproof, so this pose is often required for long periods. A superb sky scene at Stavely. The last day of May 2021 and a number of mute swans are seen flying across the water at Eden Dam. Black-headed gulls perform some aerial ballet on the same sunny morning. 11th of June 2021, and a return to my favourite Yorkshire Wildlife Trust reserve at Stavely. The 3 floating islands are serving their purpose of nesting sites for the gulls. The birdsong nearby drew me away to find the source, and it was this song thrush, happily preening and singing in a nearby tree. Also heard is a chiffchaff, a familiar summer visitor, often heard but not easy to see among the foliage. Wildflowers are abundant on the reserve. This is a northern marsh orchid, a meadow scene of buttercups and hogweeds. There is a hide at the east end of the reserve, and a feeding station attracts many birds, including a water rail, which is usually hidden in the adjacent reeds. These are shy and secretive birds, so are often hard to see well. Smaller than the common moorhen, the water rail is an uncommon resident, with some immigration from Europe in winter. The white undertail is conspicuous from behind. The small birds are reed buntings. Beds are the main feature on the banks of the East Lagoon. A visit here later in the year was rewarded by an interesting bird sound from amongst the reeds and grasses. I discovered this was a Chetty's warbler. The bird is often heard, but is quite secretive, staying low within the undergrowth. At the East Lagoon, swans with cygnets, and a grey heron beyond. A lapwing suddenly makes an appearance in this peaceful scene. High above, a common buzzard orbits the lake, a fairly common sight at Stavely. These raptors can be mistaken for eagles, but they are much bigger birds and are rare to be seen in this part of the country. A male reed bunting in typical posture and its simple repetitive song. A grey heron hunting by the West Lagoon, filmed from the hide. More often herons are seen standing motionless, so to see this one so animated was just good fortune. October 2021, Studley Royal near Ripon, and the uniformly cropped trees are a clue to the next animal. Red deer, a captivated herd in the deer park. There are 3 different types of deer in the park: fallow, red and seeker. The red deer were gathered under the trees, probably due to October being the rutting season and the males being possessive of their does. The distinctive antlers of a large stag. At the time of the rut, visitors to the park are requested to keep a respectful distance from the deer. This also applies when there are young deers of all 3 types, usually May to July. All is very tranquil, But then a large stag proclaims his dominance. Notice this young deer with a dark brown and spotted coat. Although captive, the deer are kept as wild animals. May 2018, and swans with young on Yeadon Dam. At the jetty are a curious collection of ducks, the tall ones probably related to Indian runner ducks. My interest was the juvenile gull, which I thought could be a herring gull, and can take 3 to 4 years to develop adult plumage. It certainly wanted its own space. It seems to be calling out, possibly for its parent. This is a seabird, so it was very unusual to see it at Yeadon Dam. Here are Canada geese, black-headed gulls and jackdaws. It was the 31st of August 2022 when I filmed the gull, and sometime later I saw it on the island with an adult gull. And here is that adult gull, but not a herring gull, but a lesser blackback gull. It had been around the Eden area for some weeks, and I had confirmed its true identity after a number of sightings. It is not unusual for lesser blackback gulls to be seen inland, and I did find a small colony at a reservoir not far from Harrogate. For some reason, this solitary bird seems quite content here in Eden. Also, is it a female, and the juvenile its offspring? Whatever, it is a wonderful thing to have this rare visitor on our local patch. This cormorant is just one of many to arrive at Eden Dam.
I usually see one every year over there.
A large water bird very common at the coast, but also frequently seen inland. I was once told they follow the rivers from the sea to inland waters. I have seen them in the Washburn Valley at Swinsea Reservoir. Following diving for fish, cormorants perch for long periods with wings half extended to dry the feathers. This is a handsome bird, but unfortunately not popular with fishermen, as they eat a lot of the lake's fish stock.